That's right, always the beat. Boom, what's up everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakyan. Very excited to be talking about wisdom, to be talking about thriving through life, through communities, through sharing each other's experiences and helping one another across the world. We have Boaz Gaon joining us on the show.
Hey guys, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I love your work so much.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
I'm super excited to talk about all things Wisdo. This is going to be a lot of fun. For those that don't know, Boaz is the CEO of Wisdo.com. It's in the links in the bio below, Wisdo.com. And it's a platform that connects people who've been through similar experiences so they can learn from people who have been there. And he's had 15 years in storytelling, content production, Israeli.
Mm-hmm.
Israeli.
Yep, born and raised.
Born and raised, yes, yes. And has had previous work as well with his company's Medicope, did London School of Economics and Global Media and Communications. So we like to start our episodes talking about big history.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so we have find ourselves as stewards of Earth after a long period of evolution, and we're going through the exponential technology age. We're trying to figure out how to work together, 7.8 billion of these human primates. So what is your current synthesis on the state of humanity?
Well, I think, it's doing well on a whole. I think it's, destroying the Earth slowly. But I think that when you look at the types of knowledge that people try to acquire, one thing that we've seen clearly on the platform is that even though we've become smarter and we have gotten really great at acquiring knowledge, somehow wisdom, experience-based knowledge, that type of knowledge that all of us reach out to in times of meaning, in need, and the type of knowledge that humanity always relied on to make the biggest decisions, for some reason that type of knowledge has eroded, and the role of that type of knowledge has been diminished. If you go back 2,400 years ago and read Aristotle, who invented democracy and then invented narratives and storytelling, and he also looked at the types of knowledge that one needs to live well. You mentioned thriving. And he actually did something really interesting. So he looked at the various types of knowledge that are out there: scientific knowledge, artistic knowledge, military knowledge. And then he ends up saying the type of knowledge that you need to acquire to live well is practical wisdom. The reason is that is the only type of knowledge that you can't have too much of. So you can be too scientific and sort of disconnect yourself from daily lives and the lives of people who are around you. You can be too artistic, and then that can translate into being, again, too lofty or something. You can be too arrogant and too courageous, and and end up putting people in harm's way. But you can never be too wise. So when we take a step back and look at technology and look at what's missing in people's lives, we think that what is missing to a great extent is wisdom. And I encourage the people on this show to think about the type of the lessons that life has taught them, and how valuable they are or can be to someone who's going through something similar now. And that is what we spend our time thinking about.
Okay.
That was a long answer.
That was such a good answer. All right, there's a couple really important ways I think to take this. First is this understanding that over this period of big history, there has been a lot of wisdom that has been passed along through collaboration and communication of the human species to one another. That's the reason why we are so smart, is because we're able to make language and then save that and push it through these generations, building on top of it, much faster than just DNA, but we have this intelligence that we're able to top on top of it. So then there is a lack of that today, where we look around and we see ourselves lacking some of this heart-centric thinking, lacking some of this empathy and this love and this eye contact and this how do we flourish together across the planet, not just individual, but with this Nash equilibrium, with this collective at the same time. So I like how you put that into perspective with, it is so much about retaining these principles of the best wisdoms over the years. And you bring this to Aristotle. Tell us about how you see that, this process of retaining these important collective wisdoms over time.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So, I think that when you look at the evolution of how, humans have acquired knowledge, I think that for thousands of years, the assumption was that we all have access to wisdom. There's that elder, the village elder that we can go and speak to. There are people who we can very readily and easily access that would teach us, how to live. What we're missing is, knowledge. We're missing, the golden age of the libraries, from Alexandria and onward. I think the knowledge graph, that Google amazingly built, to some extent is founded on this thesis that if only we could have, an answer to any question that we can ask, then our problems as humans will be solved. I think that what Facebook did with the social graph is sort of work with the hypothesis that if only we would be connected to every person on Earth, then our lives as humans would be perfected. I think what we're seeing now is that we are connected to 3.5 billion people, or we will be by 2021, which is the number of people who are going to be connected via social. And we have access to a tool that can answer any question, as long as someone asked it before, and still we feel alone, and we feel non-wiser. And I think what happened is that type of knowledge called wisdom has been neglected. Now that the social graph and the knowledge graph, to a large extent, has been solved for, I think we need to think about the wisdom graph. How do we capture wisdom, organize it, and send it to the right person at the right time without that person, without that person even knowing that they should, acquire that piece of wisdom. Because wisdom, the thing about wisdom is that it's all the things that you don't know that you don't know. So you can't even ask that question on search because you don't know what to ask. So, how can we, proactively acquire lessons that other people have learned that we should acquire so we can have a better tomorrow, better next week, better next month, better next year, is something that I think that technology hasn't solved. In our humble way, we are trying to solve that challenge.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm so in love with what you just said. Okay, so there's a couple different things that you said that are super important. There's a knowledge graph, a social graph, and a wisdom graph.
Absolutely.
And so what's very interesting that we've been thinking about a lot is this ultimate synthesis of civilization's knowledge.
Yep.
So let's say that a couple thousand years ago, the knowledge graph it was more contracted, it wasn't as wide. And the reason because of that is because of all these new scientific revolution advancements that have been pushing the edge of knowledge out across different fields. And then there's the social graph, like you said, now 3.5 billion humans soon will be connected across all of these different social platforms. And so then the connectivity is increasing, which is very awesome. And then how are we still feeling somewhat alone and stuff like that? That's very strange, it's weird. Why are we more echo chambered out and cognitive eased out? But
it's not so strange, but we can address it if you'd like.
It's more that we didn't have the right pieces of our own evolution advanced enough to know that we are in an echo chamber. So we have to do better at nuance and stuff. And then this last part is this wisdom graph. And you painted this out so beautifully. You said that within this wisdom graph that's been accumulating of human wisdom, which is somewhat similar to knowledge in some ways, there's maybe some overlap of event diagram style, but this wisdom that's been carried on over time in this knowledge graph, how do you deliver it to the right human at the right time is such a beautiful question and project to be working on with Wisdo.
So you mentioned that that I'm Israeli, and the people that in Wisdo are based in Israel. There's another interesting company called Waze that came out of Israel.
That everyone here uses.
They did fairly well. And we sat down with them as we began thinking about this challenge, and they talked about how what Waze does is they crowdsource maps. And they use existing data that is delivered by people in real time to proactively tell you, how you should drive your own kind of journey and where you should take a right and where you should take a left, where there's a whatever, something on the road that you should be aware of. And how cool would it be if we could do to life what Waze did to traffic? So that was sort of the first metaphor that we went out to the world with, and then we read Aristotle very deeply, and it turns out that if you can crowdsource life or the structure of meaningful experiences, if you can get people to suggest what they believe are the major junctions or major steps, what we call, along any specific journey, and I'll give some examples. So I don't know if you have kids. But no. I do. I have 2 kids.
2 kids in the exponential technology world. Good luck. How old are they?
They're big. They're old. They're older.
They're older.
Than the average. I think that
late teens now.
Yeah. One is my older son is 15, and my younger daughter is 12.
Okay.
And both of them.
Dang it! They're in the smartphone age right now.
Yeah, they are. But they're good kids.
They're good kids.
Yeah, good kids.
Okay.
They're brilliant and all that. Of course. But I'm a Jewish dad, but when you're going through something like parenting, when you're going through something like divorce, or building a home, or depression, anxiety, caregiving, any one of these major life events that one day present themselves and say, "We're here, and you're going to have to deal with us," right? And by the way, there's a standard stress scale that talks about 42 stress-creating consequential life experiences that all of us will go through in life. So when that happens, knowledge doesn't play a big role in the decisions that you're making. The fact that you can connect to a billion people doesn't matter at all. Because what you're looking for is that specific person who's been through this specific moment that has become part of your life. So what if we could crowdsource all that and invite people to come up with the major steps that any parent should know about? So bringing a baby back from hospital, that moment when you bring the baby back home and you go, well, no one talked about this moment. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Let's take something as challenging as breast cancer. So sure, you're going to go, God forbid you've been diagnosed. You're going to go to Google. You're going to search for, how do I cope with my diagnosis? You're going to get 1 million results, 1 billion results on, chemotherapy and clinical pathways, etc. But what about steps like cutting your hair before chemotherapy? That moment that every breast cancer patient or survivor has gone through, repeatedly described as one of the most difficult moments along that journey. What about telling your friends and family that you've been diagnosed? What about if you come out as gay? What about that moment when you come out to colleagues? It's like those moments that require wisdom. So what if we could crowdsource that? What if we could build a map representing all of the junctions of all of life's meaningful experiences? And what if we could leverage that map to say, well, where are you now, right? What are you going through in life? And you would go, well, I'm going through anxiety, I'm starting a business, I'm taking care of an older parent. And then I would go, all right, so here are all the steps that people have suggested. And you would go, been there, been there, been there, been there, or there now, there now, there now. And I would then take all that data and say, well, you know, Alan, here's someone that you should really speak to. You should speak to this person because he and you share 436 steps. And then you should speak to that person because he's been through experiences that you are very likely to experience, even though you don't know that, which is what the wisdom graph is about. That is what we're busy building.
Damn. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Ah!
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
I feel so good to have met you, you know.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much. It means a lot.
You're doing some of what I think is, the most important work that civilization needs to do, building out this wisdom graph. And okay, let's explain this in a couple of points. You say there are these junctures that we step on, and even let's say the child is born. The child is born, and then the first thing is that this period of the first 2 to 4 months is so crucial for the maternal-infant relationship to be really strong, to not have trauma that lasts long throughout life, to have that love and compassion, all these basic needs met and whatnot. Then we have these junctions, like you said, of immediately when they're coming back from the hospital. Then there's when we're going through any of these life circumstances, losing someone in our life, like a grandparent or a parent, having some sort of a health issue, doing something that may be like depressive or anxious or any. You have so many of these listed actually. We can show you right here how many of them actually exist. There's tons. You know, on the site, you guys offer these experiences for members to enter the anxiety group, the motherhood group, relationship advice, depression, LGBTQ, chronic pain. This list it's extremely long because there are so many different junctions for people to arrive at. Right. And then there's a bunch of data around machine learning and artificial intelligence to be able to see that if I've been to 400 of these similar steps that you have, that you are good, even though you might be in Israel and I may be in California, it's still better for us to connect digitally than it is for me to connect to someone locally that may only have 100 of the same steps as me. And so then there's that connection that occurs. And then there's another connection, which is, let's say there are 2 people that each have about 200 steps, one in Israel, one in California, that I've walked. Then I might want to connect to the one in San Francisco because then I can go meet them in person and have face-to-face, eye-to-eye conversation. Yep.
You know, similarity is one type of match. I think, as I said, you know, there are various differences that produce matchings that are even wiser than similarity. I think one thing that we've seen very clearly on the platform, I mean, you know, the experiences that you mentioned are all experiences that people have suggested and crowdsourced, which is why the list is so long. And it reflects the audience or the demographic that we're seeing involved with the platform, which is the 18 to 34 demographic currently. But I think that as we scale, we'll see, you know, things like retirement and, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, debt. You know, remarrying.
Right now we have Reddit threads as kind of the place for many people for how to handle tough things like debt. There's some people that are talking about how to get out of debt, how to work out better, how to do these things. Reddit threads are kind of one of the good ones.
Reddit, you know, is a platform that we've studied very deeply, and you know, there's some brilliant people working there. I think, you know, the thing about wisdom is that there are 2 components that, you know, make wisdom what it is, which I think current online platforms lack. One is structure. So, you know, if this is unstructured content, if this is, you know, subreddit, which is, there's a flat hierarchy between, you know, subreddits, you know, that is not necessarily wisdom. Wisdom is something that you would acquire and would be sensitive to your location in a certain trajectory. So that is one thing. The other is empathy. You know, think about a good friend that you would describe as wise. You would sit down with that person and he would tell you something. It would turn into wisdom if you would really think that he is giving you a piece of advice with good intentions, with a desire that you would come out of this well, and you would go, wow, this is a really wise person, right? So, we have, a hierarchy of users, which is another part of the wisdom graph, that are basically prioritized by how helpful they are to other people.
Yeah. So that's when you can score more points and have more say in helping people.
Exactly.
And versus maybe it's harder to tell when someone can be helpful that's anonymous versus someone that has already built up quite a bit of points in helping people with where they're at their junctions in life, especially when they've walked onto similar junctions with similar steps.
So there's a lot of AI and work going into that. What makes a helpful person? What differentiates someone from someone who is less helpful in an online platform? So we count helpful scores. There's a reaction called helpful. We don't have a like button. We do have a helpful reaction, which is a whole different ballgame. We have a reaction called been there. And imagine how powerful it is that you're writing something very personal and someone clicks been there and you know that you and him or her share the same life path or moment.
Whoa, so is that when you click been there, does that add the steps that you guys have been on the same step?
We know that you two have an affinity, and we would use that to match you with people who've been through similar steps. You would also be sending a push to that person, and that person would know that someone in this world has been through that specific thing that they wrote about. And almost a third of the people who get that reaction go back to the platform and start a one-on-one conversation with that person who gave them the been there, click.
Whoa.
Which I think is a reflection of how, deeply all of us yearn for a meaningful, non-judgmental, personal connection with someone who's been there. I mean, what's more human than that? Yeah. So, to go back to your question about, early childhood and what happens there, I think that there's an interesting question about identity. Who are we as people? Are we the number of friends that we have? That's one question, or one type of answer. I think the social graph did that to humanity. We are, if we have 10,000 followers, or if we have 10,000 friends, then somehow we are worth more than someone who has 500 friends. That's one way to look at it. I think another way to look at it is to say, you are what you've been through in life. Which is very Aristotelian. I mean, Aristotle talked about, and this is from my life as a storyteller and writer, he talked about characters. So what's a character? A character is the stuff that character does, right? It's not what that character says about themselves, it's not what other people say about them. A thief is someone that steals, right? And a clown or someone's funny is someone that makes other people laugh. So we are our actions. In the same sense, we are the things that we go through in life. What we're trying to do, and what wisdom is about, is trying to connect people through what they've been through in life. And also recognizing that if you've been through caregiving and anxiety and depression and parenting, then these are like badges that you've earned. Like, these are stripes that you should wear proudly. Because each and every one of these experiences filled you with a treasure trove of knowledge that can deeply help someone. And if we would only be able to, if people would be more inclined or realize how gratifying it is to give that knowledge, that experience-based knowledge, to someone, that would change their lives. And if we consistently are looking at what makes people feel better, and we treat this as a data project, right? This is not, sort of this amorphic kind of exploration. We surveyed our users as they went into Wisdo. We surveyed them again 2 weeks after that. We saw loneliness, reduced by 17 points. And when we double click on that and trying to understand why, it is because A, we connected them with people who've been there, but B, we helped them help. We connected them to someone whose life can change, even in a small scale way.
We find meaning in life from also delivering help to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then that also can be where people potentially may feel like they can gain a lot of they can spend their time on Wisdo delivering help to other people that need it. And this isn't necessarily...
And they do. It's amazing to see.
And it's also interesting that this democratizes in a sense that whenever we hear people visiting psychiatrists or visiting therapists or having these events where you do things like circling, where you go and you just become really vulnerable and really open to just listening to how other people feel and showing them that you understand them, that is really cool because it's democratizing this entire process. As long as, again, that this is benevolent in many, that this is difficult because now you must be the ones that kind of do a little bit of making sure that someone else isn't coming on to cause malevolence. That can be tough too.
There's a way to do this. I think the first step is to set expectations. So this platform is a peer-to-peer community where people help each other. So if you are here because you want to do other stuff, then at some point, if you break the code of conducts, then you would be warned, and if you repeat that behavior, which is unhelpful, then you would be asked to leave. So the way this is enforced, there are watch lists, which we studied with the Wikipedia folks, and they have this in place for a while. The watch lists include highlighted words that are words of concern. Users are watch listed if they're repeated offenders, and then we have a hierarchy of moderators. Waze did that well. I think the reason that today when you drive, you don't drive your car into the sea, even if someone decided to somehow cheat the system and troll it by sort of driving for 2 weeks back and forth just so that data point would be added to the map, is because they're moderators who earn their way to be editors on the platform, and that is why the platform is so safe. So we did the same. There's a hierarchy of moderators.
We see that in Wikipedia as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they earn editing rights on the platform, and they keep it safe. So, I'll say another thing. It's really interesting to see people, when they are in a positive environment, tend to behave more positively than when they're in a destructive environment. It's the famous broken window theory. Like
the YouTube comments section is already a place of great at times malevolence, and at times there is some wisdom that is as far as
search for it.
But then on platforms like Wisdo, when it is meant specifically for helping peer-to-peer, helping each other, then it is easier for people to understand that when they get on the platform, and that's what they're there for.
And there's a collective understanding that this platform is addressing a specific need, which is organizing and delivering experience-based knowledge. And if someone is there for a different reason, then the community itself is going to say, hey, what's up? This is not what this is for. This is not for dating. If you want to date, there are other platforms, other products out there. So, I think it can be done. I think we're seeing it happening. It's very exciting. And I think we're tapping into a very fundamental human behavior that has been neglected by tech.
Such a crucial point. So interesting that technology as a tool is being used in ways that we are now understanding our wisdom and stepping up and saying, hey, we should be using technology more so as a tool that is specifically benevolent as in many ways as possible. And helpful in as many ways as possible. And so we're kind of slowly eradicating and ethically growing, eradicating some of the malevolences and growing ethically. And it's doing things like what we see with Wisdo. This seems, you have these options. You have this option for people to click on, I've been there. You have this option for people to click on, this was helpful. And when you have these new sorts of ways, instead of just liking and retweeting and whatnot, that we're now evolving into helpful and been theirs, right? What other sorts of reactions can we have where technology can evolve and these ethics and morals can evolve to where we can communicate better, we can help with this wisdom graph actually expand it greater and connect these communities of people that are experiencing similar things to more effectively get through some of the experiences that are most meaningful in our lives, but do it with community?
So I'll give you two examples. One is this concept of a sponsor, or what we call a buddy program. So one of the first things that you encounter when you join Wisdo is, you go through the onboard, you say, here are the things that I'm going through in life. You're presented with all the maps representing the structure of that experience based on other people's experiences. You click through been there, there now, you land in the platform, and then we say to you, you have two options. One is you can dive in. There are millions of people talking about what it is that you're going through. Every profile that you're going to look at, the first thing that you're going to see is the experiences that both of you share. So you and this person whose profile you're looking at shared 4 experiences and 500 steps. I mean, imagine how powerful it is to be in an environment where you're surrounded by people that you can measure the affinity with every single second.
Yeah.
The other option that we say to you is, or offer to you is, we can match you with a buddy. If you'd like, we can find that one person who exists somewhere on earth with whom you have an incredible affinity. That person is a helpful member of the community. They earned a helper badge. We know that if you're going to write to that person, he's going to respond quickly because he's there to help. And if you'd like, we can do that match, and you can immediately start a one-on-one conversation with that person. 45% of our registered user base does that. The response rate of helpers is 92%, which is something that it took us a few months to optimize and perfect. So, that is one example. I think that all of us in our offline lives have experienced that moment where we were looking for that one person, that would understand what it is that we're going through, with whom we would be able to have a meaningful, deep, helpful, moving conversation. And we do it digitally, because I think that we've matured to a place where we understand that quantity of people serves a certain need, and quality of people serves a whole different need.
Dang, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. There's that, and then there's the one you brought up even prior to that, which was this dynamic ability to measure people's affinities with each other. That's really interesting. I don't think we've really explored that too much, this idea that when I'm walking around on the streets, that usually it takes me 5 or 10 minutes to get into a conversation with someone where we can see that we've had these similar junctions in life and that we could be good resources to each other. But what if you could just see the number, on the Wisdo of, oh, they have 4 similar junctions as you, and then you get to more easily communicate with them and learn and grow. This
we think of this as imagine a superpower. Imagine walking down the street, and as you look towards every single person on the street, you would know this person has gone through 5 experiences that I've been through. That person has been through 11, experiences. That person in the bus stop, went through 25 experiences that I've been through. I mean, how would you feel? You would feel, not alone, much stronger, much more empowered, and you would, reach out to those people and have meaningful conversations, both on stuff that you want to ask them and also offer them, you know, stuff that they are walking around with.
I would approach people way more often.
Yeah, there you go.
If I could just know that, oh dang, so many affinities with this person, but you also have to be a little bit careful with that too, because sometimes we want to, while we want to surround ourselves with people that we have lots of affinities with, we also want to surround ourselves with people that we may, there's a very careful distinguishment between affinity in terms of being at similar junctions in life, in terms of going through maybe a depressive time, going through a parent dying, going through being a mother or a father, etc. Okay, okay, those junctions, fine. But these junctions of propelling echo chambers of thinking, as in if they're already pro-abortion or pro-guns or pro-immigration or pro-nationalism or pro-whatever, that then you must be very careful then, but you don't tie those affinities.
But that exactly is the difference, because I think the social graph, what it does, it creates those echo chambers because the recommendations or the matches are based on, you know, similar network of friends who are interested in the same type of things. Well, on Wisdo, the wisdom graph matches people who've been through similar experiences. So we see this on the platform all the time. You know, these two people that couldn't be more different, you know, politically, financially, whatever, you know, one is a conservative, the other is a Democrat, one is rich, the other is, you know, less well off, and you know, and they're having amazing conversations, and they couldn't be more close because they lost a parent. They, you know, one of their spouses is going through breast cancer. They want to change their job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, and the glue that is holding them together is human affinity as opposed to network affinity, which is a whole different ballgame.
Whoa, okay, so now I'm following that the social graph is affinities are propel echo chambers. It's more about that you've both liked Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or whatever. That's how that happens. With Wisdo and wisdom knowledge graph, a wisdom graph is more about being at similar junctions of life experience, which can then bring together people from different knowledge areas, different beliefs of how civilization should be structured, but then they have a similarity that they can be met. That's very cool. Okay, so this has been super interesting so far. I want to show people what we're talking about in terms of, okay, so there's a couple things. First is I want to show that the kind of the steps on how it works. That you share your unique story, you meet people who've been there, and then you chat and help with others, and you make friends for life. That's this is your several steps to this process. And then on the sections, we read some of the sections, some of the communities that you can join, but I want to read these because we don't actually realize how often we don't realize what human experience, how vast of human experience actually is, the spectrum of all the different styles of life experience that you can have. And so when I was reading this list with you, I was like, oh my gosh, so there's things like I'm deaf, I'm coming out, I'm losing weight, I have depression, I have anxiety, I need relationship advice, I'd like to talk about body positivity, I have bipolar disorder, I have breast cancer, I want to get motivated, I'm a mother, I'm a father, LGBTQ, sexual assault, ADHD, chronic pain, autism, caregiving. I mean, talk about a spectrum and a variety of human experiences, and how many of those junctions are people at in different ways. How many people are experiencing how a lot of one of these things, maybe way less of one of these things, but then how do you measure that? How do you link up someone that's only 20% in one of these categories with another person that's only 20% in one of these categories? So I was just, my mind was so blown when I was exposed to like, this is the variety of human experiences, and that to bind people in these communities. So let's ask you that question then. How do you know when someone is maybe only experiencing like 20% wanting conversation about getting motivated versus they want like 90% of conversation about getting motivated?
So, you know, just again from a data-driven perspective, and it really helps to think about this from a, you know, data-driven perspective. Otherwise, you can get lost in, you know, in the complexity of this thing. So here's one interesting data point. The average number of experiences that a Wisdo user has on the platform is 5. So what happens is they go through the platform with one kind of urgent need, or a need that is more important to them than other experiences on the platform from the long list that you read. But then as they use the platform or are introduced to other people, they end up adding at least 4, and the average is 5. So this is an interesting framework that the average person is going through 5 major experiences at any single moment. I mean, think about yourself. I'm sure you can, you know, think about what those are, and they change through life. You know, so let's talk about myself. So, you know, I'm running a business. I'm taking care of an older mom. I am a father. I am a husband, and you know, you know, I'm writing a play, whatever, or constructing a work of art, right? So these are the 5 experiences that make up my current human condition, and they're going to change as I, you know, get older, evolve, et cetera, et cetera. So that is one data point. And then the question is, to your question, I think if that's the framework, the question is, what was the first experience that I came through, and then in which order did I add the additional experiences? So the way we're looking at this at Wisdo is, what are the strongest correlations between experiences? And then within an experience, what are the correlations between the specific steps? So I'll give you some examples. If you're going through college and you've added the college timeline to your profile, there's 50% chance that the second timeline or, you know, experience map that you would add to your profile is anxiety.
Whoa.
And I think that's fascinating. And the reason is, the reason why it's fascinating is that you would never think about that as a college student, right? You know, you would go to Google, you're going to search college to death, you're going to go on whatever Facebook groups, look for stuff, you know, about college and how to survive it. But what you should really be doing from a wisdom graph perspective is looking for, finding helpful people who've been through anxiety, and, you know, learning from them how to, you know, take that on in a more efficient way.
Imagine if the young people that were going and entering through college, that were entering the second timeline as anxiety, were immediately paired with a mentor that has been through the process. With,
so you just described Wisdo.
Yeah.
That is exactly what we're doing.
I love it. I love it.
You know, I'll give you another example. Caregiving, which is something that I know very closely because I took care of my dad, you know, when he was ill, is very closely tied with, you know, body image issues. Because as you're taking care of someone who's older, you know, neglect yourself and you become less healthy, and we know that from the data. So this is examples from, you know, correlations between a first experience and the second experience that you add to your profile. Then we also look at the relationship between steps. So I'll give you a trivial example. If you're coming out, then, you know, chances are that you're going to spend a lot of time thinking about coming out to friends and family, right? That moment where you say, you know, mom, dad, I'm gay. How do you phrase that? How do you say that? But 97% of people who click been there on that step also click, you know, either there now or been there on a step called coming out to colleagues, which is different. You know, it's a different dynamic. These are people who are less close to you, but, you know, you've just made a very important decision in your life. Chances are that maybe you want to, you know, talk about that. And we know that if you've been here, then chances are that you're going to be there, and you should speak to this guy who knows something about it.
That is such a good example, and they're different in their nuance. You will find that taking a step towards talking to your parents about how you feel about something is different than talking to your colleagues about how you feel, than is different than talking to your best friends, than your brother or sister potentially, etc. There's that nuance is very interesting in that you can map how people are following that to that second point on the coming out step.
And you would never search for that. You know, that's the thing, because you would not know that that is something that is going to be something that you're going to be bothered by, because no one reflects to you the way forward. There's zero visibility. It's like you're driving blindly down this road.
Through the junctions to normally we're driving through a foggy dust storm.
Exactly.
And then when you get these steps with machine learning that can show you, they can separate some of the fog and the dust out of the way by giving you additional connections. It can be, you know, I guess there can be times there potentially to be a little bit weary that you don't nudge someone in a direction that they may not be wanting to even go. That, okay, well, we see that you've been on depression. Do you also feel somewhat anxious? Do you also feel somewhat suicidal? This can be.
We don't do that.
Yeah, correct. And this is also very good, that because this is when people walk into that in that very anxious state into the clinic, and they're going to speak to a psychiatrist, and they're filling out their states of anxiety and depression, suicidal thinking and stuff. The questions sometimes feel like they're all leaning you towards the most, you know, negative states. So this can be very harmful at times as well. So you tell us about the process and how you don't do that. So how would you nudge someone into like following?
So we don't nudge, you know, we don't nudge at all. I mean, the only thing that we do is, you know, highlight or, you know, present to you people that you might want to start a conversation with. So when you look at a certain, say you're in a specific group, say you're going through depression, and you click on the members list in the depression group that we just, you know, recommended that you check out, the people in that group are going to be ordered by how similar they are in their experiences to you. It's a long list of people, but you'll see the number of steps per person, and then you can, you know, look at their profile, check out how many helpful scores they have, what are the contributions they've put on Wisdo, how many love reactions they've received, did they get reviewed? I mean, helpers and buddies on the platform get reviews from people that they helped. It's on their profile, so you can check out how helpful someone was, and then you can make a decision, an informed decision, about the people that you want to start a conversation with. So that's the extent by which we, you know, would present you with people that you haven't searched for.
Okay.
But we try to create like a discovery mode where you would be able to reach out to those guys and have a meaningful conversation. Where we are more proactive is when you join us, and we say, you know, if you'd like, we can match you up with a buddy. And based on what you've been through, we would recommend someone that we know is helpful. So the helpful, or the helpers as we call them, they're about 15% of our user base. These are the best, most helpful, most positive, most empowering users on the platform. And if we recommended that you get in touch with them, then chances are that even if you're down, you're going to finish that conversation feeling much better about yourself. The other way that we treat this is, you know, we talked about watch lists. So if someone uses, I mean, there's super guides on the platform that control watch lists that are, you know, ingrained in the platform. So if someone uses a word like suicide, or someone uses a word like knife, or, you know, thinking about the end or stuff like that, that would send an automatic push to a super guide in a specific group, so they would be able to quickly check out that post and see whether it's a problematic post or not. And if it is, then, you know, they're going to reach out to that person and say, hey, what's going on? Can we help? And the response rate, or the, you know, the time that it takes to find that person and have a conversation about the specific post is you know, like it's very, very brief, and we're getting better at doing that.
There, like you just described, there is this interesting sort of a bell curve, and you have on one end of the bell curve, you have these sort of extremely positive helpers that are helping a lot of people. They have a disproportionate amount of the amount of people that have said that they've been helpful and whatnot. And then there's people on the other side of the bell curve that have been, that you need to put on watch lists and sometimes banned from the platform because they're just being malevolent. And then there's the majority of people in the center of the bell curve that are just trying to talk to a couple people and get advice and stuff. That's interesting that you're experiencing those and that you have to moderate in the sense. And then I wanna show this. I think this is important for people that haven't seen yet. So here we're under the relationship advice. This is kind of what it'd be like. You have this option here of Jackie, how did he get you to come back? And then you have an option to heart, insightful, been there. So I am back living with my ex after he wanted to be alone, as in single, but he acts as if we never broke up. So there's this interesting conversation here happening. My lease ended, I had to crash somewhere. So humans are going through these experiences, and the fact there's already someone that has been there that you're now talking to about this, and that has this, like, this is a use, there's a high utility here for the people that are experiencing something similar. There was another, see, this is also interesting to me. So there's this one as well, which is Sarah. So this is Sarah Snow has been through 14 steps you follow in motherhood. So this is pairing together a mom with another mom that has been through 14 of these similar steps, and it goes something like, "Hi, I'm Beth, and I just found out that I'm 6 weeks pregnant. Congrats, Beth. I have 2.5-year-old daughter and 2-month-old son. What would you like to know about the road ahead?" So this again is just another really interesting example of how you can connect. Like you said, what are you going to do when you're pregnant? What are you going to do when you come home with your kid? How are you going to maximize your efficiency with being a good parent? Well, a good way to do it is to have a community of people that have been through these similar steps. And here's one last thing that I want to show. These are some videos of how parenting a child with OCD, how I explain cancer to my son, why raising a child with autism is an incredible gift, my coming out story. So this is Wisdo. This is Wisdo. Yeah, this is your platform. How many people are working on building this now?
A grand total of 13. 13. Amazing people.
And this is across Tel Aviv and Mill Valley?
It's across Tel Aviv, Syracuse, New York, and Los Angeles.
And Los Angeles and Syracuse, okay. And 13, and it's mostly then designers, software engineers, and a little bit of like machine learning, data science. So those are the kind of the three main fields. Cool. And do we know approximately how many people are using? Are we able to share?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, we have around 500,000 registered users.
Oh, what?
And we want
That's awesome.
Listen, we think that this is one of those platforms that all of us need, and there's no reason at all, if we continue to grow as we think we should be growing, that in 10 years, people would be, it's going to be difficult for them to imagine their lives without Wisdo. Just as people can't imagine their lives without Google or Waze or any one of these platforms. Because, I mean, think about it. It's crazy. We go through life, we use our phone to drive. We use our phone to choose a restaurant. We use our phone to search. And but as we go through, life's most meaningful experiences, we go through them blindly and alone. And the role of technology in that space, which is, the most important moments of our lives is non-existent. And that needs to change, which is why we built this thing.
Yeah, that's why I foresee this going from, 500,000 users to 500 million users in the next 10 years. I really hope so. I hope that this becomes as frequently used as search and maps, like you're saying, because this is that the journey of life's most meaningful experiences, and to have wisdom from other people that we can commune on is so crucial along that journey. Wow.
And it can also fix, it can also fix some of the biggest ailments of, social that all of us have been talking about, reading about, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it can solve for loneliness, the sense of being disconnected. It can solve for the whole, non-authentic, fake, contributions debate. Because on Wisdo, you're reading stuff that was written by people who've been through those things, and it can't get more authentic than that. I think social has been great at connecting us to a multitude of people, but I think the dynamic there is to expose you to sort of the glamorized life that other people are not living, but they're posting those posts because that's the dynamic. I think that if we can raise the level of authentic, real contributions and connect people based on similar life experiences, I think the online universe can evolve into something much healthier.
As we talk about these
He's
ailments,
speechless.
Yeah,
look at that.
Look at that.
Alan is speechless.
It's right. As we talk about some of the malevolence and the ethical quandaries that we face in the attention economy and in some of the business plans, that the way that they're structured, and addictive technologies that are in place, that this is a good way to. This is one of those positives that we can use technology in these ways, just like we used it in maps and search. We can use it in gathering a wisdom graph and connecting with people based on being at similar junctions in life and having similar steps that we've taken. Yeah, there's so many of these examples like you listed earlier. When you're a college student and you enter, and then you also enter the anxiety timeline, well, immediately you're paired with a mentor that can help you. That if you, whatever it is like this, that you can get paired immediately with someone that can help you based on data, based on life experiences. This is really important. This is really crucial stuff. And I think this is where technology is headed. This is kind of like the the social media 2.0 scene is stuff like this, where it is social media for good, rather than social media specifically for extracting attention and advertising dollars. So, okay, let's ask, before we ask a couple quick questions on the show, I just want to ask you, do you think we covered a decent amount of the structure? Is there another important thing that you think is to cover or to mention?
No, I think we covered the important components of the platform. I think that the more people join us, the better the service that we can provide. I mean, we have seen that in the data. Just to give you, by the way, a few data points. When we sat down with the Waze guys, they talked about the natural distribution between contributors and consumers online. So usually it's the 99-1 rule, where 90% are passive consumers, 9% are contributors of content, and 1% are highly engaged users, moderators, etc. That's what you would find on Waze, Wikipedia, etc., etc. On Wisdo, 45% of the user base are contributors. So everyone is talking to someone, because the connections are they're not friendships, they're bonds. They're long-lasting human connections where people are prone to having conversations with others. The other thing that we've seen is that, again, the more we have people on the platform, the better matches we can provide, because just the network is bigger and richer.
Totally.
And we can get better at finding that special person who can really change your life. So, I'm sure all of the people who come on the show, say, invite your viewers to check us out and download the app. But I'm saying this in the context of not just from an acquisition point of view, but we want to provide the best value, and we want to provide the best matches. And the more people we have on the platform, the better we can get at helping people through some of the most consequential moments of their lives.
Yes.
So if you want to help other people, join us and find that one person who's waiting out there for you to, to change their lives for the better. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a great call to action point. Is getting involved with Wisdo it's free across iOS and Android.
Right.
And is there a way that you guys are able to sustain and grow with a model that for monetization?
So the model that we're going with, which we're playing around with, is a marketplace. We're trying to stay away from mass advertising, which I don't think is a model that has proved, trustworthy from a user standpoint necessarily. I think what we've found that people do perceive as helpful is if we can highlight service providers who have services to offer to people who are going through specific life events.
Awesome.
And if those services have been highly rated by other people who've been through those specific experiences, that people actually see this as a service. Because when you go through caregiving, parenting, any one of these experiences that I've been through, you spend a ton of money, right? You're trying to buy your way out of ambiguity, and often you make a ton of mistakes and very costly mistakes. So if we can help you find out, who is that, where is that person that you don't know, that you don't know, that you should know, we also can become a place where we would say, hey, here's someone who has a 5-step program to overcome anxiety or make you feel better about yourself or better about your body, better about your mental state. And 1,500 people who've been through the steps that you've been through gave that person a 4-star review, and the average is 4.8. When we show that, then we see very high conversion to people who purchase either a one-on-one with that person or a monthly subscription to speak to that person, or a group moderated with that person. So that's the model that we're exploring, and we think it can help us scale.
Yeah, I really enjoy that you are going against the tide with the advertising. I agree. Even we here are so focused on being able to sustain through other methods that are not paywalling. That stuff it doesn't work when your ethics are tied to the heart-centric progress of humanity. You wouldn't paywall someone getting wisdom from other people, just like we wouldn't paywall people getting content that is really important. And I like how you talk about this marketplace model. It immediately started running some creative juices in my mind. Like, yeah, if you want to get motivated and you're talking to someone else that's been through a juncture getting motivated, you guys can place a local gym or a local maybe Tony Robbins event or whatever into their feed, and they can go and explore that event, and you guys can potentially get a commission, and that can support you guys growing for your engineering and operations and actually making this platform what it is. So that's I like that marketplace idea. That's very good. Yep. Okay, so the couple quick questions on the way out. What would you say is a core driving principle of your life?
Helping people. I think it's the one tested and proven model to feel better about yourself. That's a short answer, but I really do believe that. I think that, when you're going through a moment of difficulty or joy, but it's new and, you're centered, you're focused on yourself, then that puts you in a certain mental state. But if you're able to, go out of yourself and concentrate on transferring knowledge to someone else based on what you've been through and see that person's life change, then you would feel immensely better about yourself. And people who do that repeatedly, and I know quite a few of them, many of them are Wisdo users, but not all of them. People who, invest their lives in helping other people, they're just happier. So that's my motto.
I love that, and I totally agree. Yeah, we gain a lot of our more deepest meaning in life from helping others. Okay, how about, this wouldn't be simulation if we didn't ask you. Are we in a simulation?
Wow, that's a big one. I don't think it matters, It doesn't matter. I think, this is the reality that we were dealt. We're surrounded by other people and a certain reality, and I think our role in this reality and existence is to, to make the best of it. There's one go, and it's not, it's finite. So make the most of it and enjoy it and do the things that you love, and be the person that you want to be. And it doesn't, it doesn't really matter if it turns out to be a video game. What matters is, as long as we're in it, we make the most of it.
It's such a short time. It's a blink of an eye, and to level up our characters the most in the story is very important. And
yep.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from providing value to the collective as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the last question. What is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Woo. I think it's a well-crafted story. I think that stories have an optimal architecture. And I think that there are stories out there that have been crafted in an optimal way. And when you consume them as a viewer, as a listener, et cetera, you end up feeling that you consumed something that was just perfect. And that feeling is what art is for. But those pieces of art, those stories that take us from one place through a journey and end up with us looking back, which is what the Greek wanted us to do, and say, wow, I really learned something by consuming this perfect story without me having to go through this ordeal that the hero just went through for an hour and a half. We feel cleansed and purified. And to me, perfect stories are the most beautiful things.
It makes me want to finish up on this ultimate synthesis of civilization's story and make that into a very fun and relatable way of increasing people's awareness to how we got here.
Well, you're doing that. Yeah. You're doing that.
It's on the way, for sure. It's on the way, Boaz. It's on the way. This has been such a pleasure.
Likewise, man.
Such an honor.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And
we love you so much.
Likewise.
We love you so much. You're doing such important work.
Well, you're the one collecting all this wisdom, daily. So kudos to you.
Thank you, and it's thanks to you guys that you guys continue to check out this content. We really appreciate you guys watching the show. Hugely appreciate it. We'll continue being at that edge of knowledge for you, for sure. So important to be at the edge. And Wisdo's definitely at the edge. Again, the link's in the bio below. Here you can see again, wisdo.com. Learn from people who've been there. Go and sign up on the App Store or on Google Play. Go and get that, everyone. Go and check it out. Go and join these communities and have this positive social, use technology for these positive social wisdom graph interactions. I love it. I love it. I love it. And go and build the future, everyone. Go and manifest your destiny into the world. We love you so much, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.